Today, we're going to break down a truly catastrophic IT failure at one of the world's most prestigious universities, King's College London. This is the story of how a single, routine hardware fix snowballed into a complete and total data disaster. So, let's just start with the punchline. It was a total disaster. In October 2016, one server component failed during a simple fix, and in a flash, almost everything on their central storage system was just gone. For some people, this meant decades of priceless research had completely vanished. So you have to ask, how does a world-class institution even get into a position like this? To really get it, we have to look at the system they had. And the best way to do that? Imagine you're a new IT employee starting there, and you just start asking some pretty reasonable questions. Okay, so the first thing you hear about is this big plan to migrate all the data to a new, modern, much safer storage system. That sounds great, right? So naturally you'd ask, hey, how's that super important project coming along?
And the response you get is just, don't worry about it, a casual brush off. Now, this isn't just about one project. It's a huge red flag. It's a symptom of a much deeper, cultural problem that's bubbling just under the surface.
All right, so then you look around and you see they actually have professional, industry-standard backup software called Veeam. Awesome. But then you notice it's not being used for everything. So you ask the next obvious question, why not?
And there it is again, that same casual attitude. This time, they point to these old, slow magnetic tape backups. And that word at the end, probably, that does not exactly fill you with confidence, does it? And that leads you to the big one, maybe the most important question you can ask in IT. See, it's one thing to say you have backups. It's a completely different thing to know if you can actually get your data back from them. So you ask, have we ever actually tried to restore from these things? The answer you get is, well, it's kind of stunning. Your supervisor points to what they call their ultimate backup strategy. Was it? They take snapshots of the data, and then they save those snapshots right back onto the very same machine that holds the original files.
This analogy just hits the nail on the head. It's a perfect description. This strategy gives you absolutely zero protection if the machine itself goes down. It's a complete illusion of safety that was just waiting to be shattered. So you've got this incredibly fragile system just balanced on a knife's edge. The stage was set for total disaster, and all it took was one little push to send the whole thing tumbling down. That push came in the form of a routine hardware fix. The storage system they had was an HP 3-par. It had 4 controller nodes. You can just think of them as the system's brains. One of them failed, so an HP technician comes out. This should have been a walk in the park. The machine was literally designed to handle this kind of swap without any downtime or data loss at all. But it wasn't a walk in the park. See, the new part had newer firmware. That's its internal software, and it wasn't compatible with the older firmware running on the rest of the machine. And that mismatch, well, it was like a bomb going off inside the system. It triggered this catastrophic chain reaction, causing failures across tons of disks all at the same time. The whole system just imploded. To really understand why losing a bunch of disks at once is the absolute kiss of death, we need to quickly talk about the magic that's supposed to stop this from happening. It's a technology called RAID, and it uses a clever math concept called parity. Okay, the system does this really neat math trick. Basically, it takes your data, splits it up, and then creates this special recovery piece of data from all the original pieces. If one of your hard drives dies, no problem. The system uses that special recovery piece and the other surviving data to perfectly rebuild everything that was on the dead drive. But, and this is the crucial part, this magic only works if 1, maybe 2 disks fail at once. And at King's College, that little firmware bug caused way too many disks to fail all at the same time. It completely overwhelmed the RAID protection. The data wasn't just missing, it was wiped clean. The team's only hope, their absolute last resort, was to turn to their backups. So, the team frantically turns to their backup plans, and what do they find? A whole lot of nothing. Those volume snapshots, they were on the machine that just died, so gone. The second storage system they had, turns out it wasn't a copy at all. It held completely different data. That professional Veeam software, yeah, it was only being used for a tiny fraction of their systems. And the last hope, the tape backups, an untested, incomplete, unreliable mess. Every single backup plan was useless.
So, who's to blame here? Is it the HP technician? A faulty piece of hardware? Well, as the dust settled and the investigation began, it became crystal clear that the real problem wasn't technical. It was deeply, deeply human. Now, it's true that HP had actually released a software patch weeks earlier that would have prevented this whole mess. But you know what? Blaming it on one missed update is completely missing the forest for the trees. The real issues were baked into the organization itself. The failure was truly systemic. You had an IT team that was totally overloaded. You had senior leaders who were so disconnected they only met once a quarter. There was a culture of ignoring real problems just to make sure the performance numbers look good. They couldn't even run disaster drills. And maybe worst of all, their backup automation was failing constantly but reporting that everything was fine, and nobody was escalating these problems up the chain. It was just a perfect storm of mismanagement. The impact, as you can imagine, was just devastating. The Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience was hit especially hard. They lost research data that had been gathered over decades. This kicked off an absolutely brutal, month-long recovery effort to try and salvage anything they could from the wreckage.
The recovery process was a total grind. Teams worked around the clock using forensic data tools, even going back to old paper copies and redigitizing them. Slowly but surely, drive by drive, they started bringing services back online. But as you can see, the fate of the end drive, that remains a mystery. That data is very likely gone for good.
Eventually, the technical systems were rebuilt, this time with much better backups. But the real damage was already done. The staff had completely lost faith in the university's central IT. A lot of them started saving their most critical work on their own personal laptops and hard drives, which, by the way, is a whole other security nightmare. It turns out the hardest thing to restore wasn't the data, it was trust.
And that really brings us to the final and most critical takeaway from this whole story. Yes, King's College London rebuilt their servers and their backup systems, but the real question, the one every organization should be asking itself, is this. Did they fix the culture of complacency and silence that allowed the disaster to happen in the first place?